Okay, good morning, everyone. Just a quick sound check. If you can just confirm that you can hear me okay, maybe in the chat or audibly, that'll be fine. That's quick, thank you. Okay, we're probably gonna just hang on for another 2 minutes because we have great numbers for this today, and I can see they're coming through the waiting room as we speak. So just maybe 1 more minute, and then we'll be underway. Okay. Benny, as I mentioned, if you can continue to let people in, it's quite a flurry, and unfortunately I won't be able to multitask with presenting and being the doorman as well. So over to you, Benny, for the admissions. Everyone else, a very good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are on the planet. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Apologies to anyone that fell foul of the slight timing issues. Today we are having a presentation on bringing you guys up to date on Robustel's proposition, and there will be a section on products as well, because I think we really do need to bring up to date what is actually available, what you can order, where it will be used. And I'm delighted to say that we have Alan from LORIOT to join us for the second half. It'll be about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes each session. But I think by the end of it, you will be very animated and excited by the value proposition that we both present. When we go to a customer, we don't just want to talk about a box, we want to talk about the solution. So that is what I think you guys will be happy to see by the end of it. So without further ado, couple of minutes past 11 UK time, we'll get underway. So for those of you that don't know me, and I think after quite a few webinars now, my name's David Evans. I'm the solution architect for Europe at Robustel, amongst many other things. So as always, happy to help. And of course, we can field questions, major questions on the way through, but we will always round up and answer questions at the end. So just to get started, I want to make sure we put a context to Laura. Now, many of you will know this already, but there's talk about low power WANs, LPWAN, low power radio solutions. Fundamentally, what we're really talking about is getting sensor data, a temperature, a position, and any kind of analog or digital input, sensor data to the internet. And all of these technologies that you can see in front of you fundamentally service that purpose. And they cover a large area, and they're low powered, because that way you can have things running on batteries, so deployment is much, much easier, etc., etc. And of course, in the unlicensed spectrum, our focus is LoRa. We do have offerings in the licensed section. In the unlicensed, from Robustel, certainly the focus is on LoRa. Now, many of you will have seen this classic comparison slide, very well documented by now. And I think what I wanted to do with this slide is not do the technical detail, but kind of highlight when we're trying to get some information from in the field to the internet, what actually matters. And I've kind of highlighted three things. Obviously, all of this matters, but what's really important is the data rate. So that really is binary. Is it fast enough? Is it not fast enough? There's a huge amount of conversation around protocols that can or cannot allow over-the-air updates. I have my own views on that, but clearly, if you need over-the-air updates, you're going to struggle with things like narrowband IoT and so on. So the data rate decision is quite trivial. It's stop or go. And then you have other things, the other key things. The clue really is in the title, low power, wide area. So link budget roughly correlates to the range. What is the range available? Now, obviously, it's an interesting split here. You've got Laure and Sigfox using the unlicensed spectrum and the ability on both of those networks to build your own, to enhance your own network, versus the mobile operator technologies, where you have less chance of influencing where there is or isn't coverage. But of course, range is important. If you can build a network with a fewer number of gateways, then ultimately the business case is better because there is less CapEx and less OpEx, which is massively underestimated, I think, especially on LoRa networks, that the upfront cost can look good, but the ongoing running of a network is a very important consideration. And then the other thing, of course, is power efficiency. It's a very simple equation that if you can create a sensor that can run for 2 years on batteries, as opposed to 1 year on batteries, that means you need to visit on average 500 sites a year instead of 1,000 sites a year. So the business case around power efficiency is an enormous consideration, because the real cost in these things is people and vehicles and insurance and travel. So I think it's, we often see these slides, but rarely does anyone draw out what's actually important. What's the business case that derives from these parameters. So I thought I'd just give that global view of that slide. And I also wanted to give a bit of an update generically in this area. So yes, one of the ways that us and you can generate revenue is by selling gateways and wrapping value around it with our friends from Laureate. But we also need to look at the market as a whole. Is it going in the right direction? Because if IoT isn't happening, if people aren't doing this kind of stuff, then or our chosen technology isn't flourishing, then the available market to each and every one of us is limited. So this is just a few highlights from the last sort of 3 months-ish. Some may go a little over that. So within the very recent past, they've announced a German network. So that's a public LoRaWAN network across Germany. I think it would take up to, suggested 3,000 gateways. But then, of course, there's a public opportunity to literally just add a LoRa sensor in. Now, that's a double-edged sword for people that are selling gateways. On the one hand, it increases adoption. On the other hand, it might reduce the number of people building their own networks. But broadly, I would say at this stage, adoption is the thing we need most across the board. Success stories that prove the technology. What I believe is a private network, I'm not sure if they're reselling it, but I believe a private network of 17,000 streetlights was signed off fairly recently for a city in Scotland, in Aberdeen. And I think when you look at the business case for that, and the fundamental energy saving behind it, plus the carbon story, I think there's a very powerful case in street lighting. In fact, there always has been on 868 megahertz. People have been doing this for some time, but it gets even better when you're doing it on a standardized technology. And I've taken that opportunity just to make something clear. For those of you that aren't so familiar with LoRa, very important differentiation between public LoRa networks and private LoRa networks. Public ones are where someone has taken the opportunity to go to head with the commercial operators of traditional 3GPP standardized networks like M1 or NB-IoT, and literally built out a nationwide network for lots of people to use. And then you need a really high quality LoRaWAN network server, such as those provided by Laureate. But that is just a very important thing. I've seen confusion over that. If no one has built a public LoRaWAN network in your country, there is no public service available. And so you either build your own, or you have to choose a different technology if you just want to rock up with a sensor and make a connection. Sigfox, there's still a huge amount of opinion and politics around Sigfox, but generally it's, I would say it's positive that there is adoption in 868 megahertz technologies. A few examples here. There has been an announcement to cover Russia with 85% of the population targeted. So again, we can connect a sensor quickly. AM Post, a big courier service in Ireland, have actually invested in the local Sigfox operator so they can fulfill their own tracking and monitoring requirements and make sure that the service is healthy as well, so they have some control over the operation locally. And also in Brazil, where I'm sure there's a great business case against the more manual technologies in place at the moment. There's a 200,000 site rollout, and the first 7,500 have gone in. Now, LTE Cat 1, this is only my view from Robustel, so there may be different opinions on this. There's a very simple narrative just to share with you. When we move into higher volumes of cellular modules, the delta in cost to someone like Robustel at the moment between Cat 1 and Cat 4, so just if you don't know, Cat 1 is kind of low speed 4G, standard 4G, uses all the usual stuff, and Cat 4 is kind of the where we normally jump off from. Obviously you've got the 4G advanced with Cat 6 and Cat 9 and Cat 12 and so on. But you know, originally I thought Cat 1 made a lot of sense, 10 megabits per second down, 5 meg up, but the commercial reality is there's not much delta in the actual cost of a module to someone like Robustel. And I would suggest that's maybe why we haven't seen a lot more of a play on low-cost Cat 1, because if you're a device manufacturer, well, you might as well have a Cat 4 device if the penalty is only a few dollars. So that may be why we don't hear more about Cat 1. Welcome to hear other views on that, and that might not be absolute, it's just an anecdotal observation. Now, one of the technologies I think has a bright future is Cat M1, and what actually opened my eyes to that is the day that someone described to me Cat M1 as a future-proofed 2G alternative. And I thought that was a great description. So there are many tracking devices, many meters working perfectly on GPRS. It served a purpose, it's great. And to be honest, those people want to carry on doing that if they can, with the low cost of airtime at low data, and with the low cost of 2G modules. Now, we can kind of emulate that GPRS environment with Cat M1. There's currently 36 networks globally, so interesting, only about a third that of NB-IoT. What the reasons are for that are probably localized. Orange currently has 4 networks, which is the operator with the most globally. And just from a Robustel perspective, I thought I'd share with you that last year we recently sold 1,000 routers into the Netherlands on Cat M1. So we have a CE approved product that's ready to go and available for sale now. Narrowband IoT, interesting sort of bit of history there. That was really born as a separate technology and only subsequently brought into the 3GPP specs. So if it looks like a slight oddball to you, then that's pretty much its roots with Newell from Cambridge in the UK and Huawei. Currently 93 networks globally. Both of those figures are according to the GSMA. Not sure all of them can really be called fully available commercial networks. Interesting, Vodafone have got 16, so they're really backing NB-IoT. And conversely, what is also interesting is Docomo, just in the last few weeks, have announced the shutdown after only a year of their NB-IoT and Cat M1 networks. And you can have some sympathy for an operator that has high operating costs on any kind of network, when the average revenue that you can make on a connection is pretty low. So it will be interesting to see what operators make of their business case on NB-IoT. And it's just worth noting, it was suggested to me that in Japan, Wisun or Wisun has been a very has been adopted very rapidly there, and that may hold on. Sorry guys, I'm just getting a message that I'm muted. Can you still hear me?
Yep, I can still hear you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So yeah, so that is a suggestion as to why part of the reason the regionalized decision by Docomo, but it's also must be said that it's interesting to see how, you know, maybe on 20 cents or 30 cents a month, how appealing it is to the finance director of the M&Os. So I must admit that's run over a little bit longer, but I just thought it was really important to, you know, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the opportunity to connect things to the internet and the currently competing technologies and how they're performing commercially, not just the usual technical digest that you get with them. So let's move on to what we're specifically talking about, you know, our chosen mechanism that we're giving you and your customers to deliver IoT applications. So many of you will have seen this. It's a textbook analysis, but I think it's a very good one. You have sensors on the left. You then have to have gateways to receive the RF from the sensors and forward them to a LoRaWAN network server. And this is, for people in the early days of LoRa, I've seen some confusion over this. And probably the best way to describe this gateway and LoRaWAN server setup is that the gateways you can think of really as dumb. They are, in fact, they just call that you can think of many gateways as just one big distributed antenna that is taking what the sensors have said to them and forwarding them somewhere else. And I think with that explanation, you come to realize that actually all of the brains of the network is the LoRaWAN network server, handling a multitude of inputs and a multitude of possible outputs. Now, I've been working on LoRa projects for, in this role and previous ones, almost probably 5 years now. And I think it's fair to say that they don't always go according to plan. And there are integration issues. So if you take a sensor from company A, a gateway from company B, a network server from company C, and the application server from company D, it doesn't generally work perfectly first time, despite the fact that the LoRaWAN stack is a standard. Sometimes it can do. I would say generally that's not the case. So one of the things you want to do is make sure that your packet forwarder, your gateway and LoRaWAN network server are tried and tested. And what we're doing with this joint proposition is removing the risk in the middle part there. So if a customer needs to just check the sensor attachments and acknowledgements, and then just has to take an output from the LoRaWAN network server, that is more manageable than trying to do everything yourself the first time you do this. And there's a slightly intangible benefit as well. If you have a sensor issue, you will get great support from Robustel in solving that problem. If you have a application server issue in the output from Laureate, you will get great technical support from Laureate. So by running with this joint proposition, I really want to get across that if you haven't done much LoRa before, there are issues. You will potentially run into compatibility issues. Sometimes the sensor manufacturers don't do things right, and we need to have the diagnostics to tell the sensor manufacturer where their mistakes are sometimes. So this is the crux of today. Take away two of the moving and you've reduced the problem by more than 50%, because both Robustel and Laureate will give you great support to get those other little pieces up and running as well. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen the generic case studies for LoRa. There's just a few here, especially for the people that are in the early days of their journey with LoRa or IoT. I think parking is a great application of LoRa. It is perfect. I mean, in the past, I've seen people put Wi-Fi access points into car parks to manage devices. The concept that we employ here with a LoRa gateway is just the same, but it's just better. We can cover a larger area. Its ability to penetrate under cars will be better. And the fact that we can have 4G backhaul potentially straight off of that means only worst case 2 or 3 lampposts. As long as we can get power to a gateway, you have a smart car park within a day's worth of installation. So I think parking has great opportunities, and we've seen some in the UK. Tank level monitoring is another great one. We just need power to a 4G gateway. Generally, as you can see from this image, there's not much that will obstruct the 4G backhaul. And because of the great chirp sequence spread spectrum used by LoRa, the penetration and the coverage is phenomenal. So maybe one gateway is adequate. But the beauty of LoRa for me is if one gateway isn't adequate, you just add another one. And you just need to find a location with power. And it's the LoRaWAN network server that handles any duplication of messages. And although this slide is, again, a nice visual on distributed assets across wide areas, I would say any utilities, you know, where there's a specific campus, especially for a private network, is an absolute no-brainer for building a LoRa network. Now, just coming on to some basic product differentiation, but in the preparation of this, I realized this is actually quite important. So Robustel have two types of products, as do many others, indoor and outdoor. Outdoor primarily, not exclusively, but primarily, requires a PoE input for simple deployment, and not a huge amount more, as long as it has its connections in place, the ability to take multiple sensors and then backhaul to a LoRaWAN network server. You just need something reliable, solid, and that is easy to install. They're generally the requirements there. If we look more towards the smart buildings, where we're talking about indoor gateways to provide a private network, and again, it's not 100% correlated, but more so, then you might need a little bit more specific integration, and you obviously don't need outdoor enclosures and things like that. But it's important to say indoor and outdoor it's loosely correlates with building a larger area network versus a smaller one, and just filling out a building space. And you might need quite a high density of gateways in buildings, because they can obstruct RF, as we know. But that is the beauty of LoRa, that if we have an area of no coverage, we can flesh out the network quite easily, especially in a building where there might already be some Cat5 infrastructure, so we can backhaul over Ethernet. So before I even start on this, the detail of the product, there is a really important commercial supply chain related issue that everyone on this call is invested in. The LoRa gateway is based on the R3000 router from Robustel, which has been around for 5 years. Our volumes are over 50,000 a year already. And this means two things. The operating system is stable and well refined, but it also means Robustel's core cost on most of the bill of materials, not all, but on most of the bill of materials, has been optimized. So this means we have high volumes of the core of our LoRa gateway. Many of the new entrants to the LoRa space, especially if they've gone with a completely new design, don't have those volumes at the moment. So admittedly, the R3000 is quite a high spec with, built for utilities. It's even past class 1 div 2 for hazardous environments. So it's not made to the lowest possible cost. But on the flip side, you would argue that when it is already very cost effective, especially in volume, you do want a high quality product, even when you're going into higher volumes in buildings, because over time, getting the right sort of price performance ratio is more important if you hold the budget for the network management and ownership. So we have 470, 868, 915, 902 megahertz versions. Important to say that has to be chosen separately on a per SKU basis, which, as we know, is a bit of a pain. We have a variety of certifications, Not we don't have everything, just like anyone, we don't have everything globally, but when we do certificates, it's proper end product certification, not some sort of component methodology, which not entirely sure if it stands up. Very important thing, we've been very quick to move with the new Quectel Global 4G module. So one of the problems we solve in this space for global deployments is all of our LoRa SKUs will now support LTE bands globally. And that is important for reducing the complexity of the number of variations of product that you need. Because when you multiply the permutations of RF, ISM band stuff, as well as LTE, it gets confusing for big OEMs. RobustOS, I will come on to as quickly as I can. I'm now going as fast as possible through this. There's an optional network server embedded, which is available from Robustel. This has been nicely implemented by our R&D guys, but bear in mind that this is for quite limited deployments. For anything significant, you will need a good quality network server like that will be introduced by our friends from Laureate. We have customers leveraging the serial, the RS485, and the digital inputs for other types of alerting. Remember, this is a 4G router under the bonnet, so any of that serial or digital data can be easily transferred over. The temperature and voltage ranges are very wide, and there are things we can do if required to show how, for example, the front-end power protection circuitry and things like that are very strong in this design. And completely customized applications can be written. So the outdoor gateway is based on the R3000 LG. The nice thing is we've had this enclosure tried and tested for many years because we've been able to integrate the R3000 LG and all of our other routers into this enclosure. We just changed the backplate design. So we've been using this methodology for at least 3 years, so it's nothing new. One thing we have done is added the PoE capability fully and properly into this version. So you would just need a single cable, single Cat5 through the M12 connector, and you can deploy a fully enabled 4G or Ethernet based gateway. It's fully IP67. It uses M12s for the copper cables, M16s for the RF. Something that does come up regularly, because sometimes these things are in line of people's view, is that it can be customized. You can actually, as a customer, if you just want to go with a high quality sticker, it can be done as easily as that. There is only one logo on the front. Extensive mounting options, as you would expect for a professional chassis. And I think it is very important to point out that especially for volume projects, for an outdoor gateway, because of the things that are in Robustel's advantage, we really can start to take on some of the sort of city tenders with this product. So guys, I'm very conscious that I'm overrunning quite badly here, but I think so much of this is critical. I'll let you decide if you have to jump off or not. Something that keeps coming back is RobustOS, developed by Robustel 4 or 5 years ago, is just so fit for purpose for these sort of applications. And the App Center methodology just works brilliantly. It's how we've implemented the Laureate app. It's how we implement our own app, and it's how we can implement customers' own third-party applications as well. So the App Center piece of it is good. Also, I've become aware through working closely with customers using competitors' products, that the fact that RobustOS is easy to use is a big advantage over some competitors. The fact that our boot time, just to bring the system up, is not, in some instances, over 10 minutes. It can be an advantage against competitors. The fact that our cloud platform is brand new, admittedly, Robustel were behind the curve in delivering a cloud platform. But the great thing is, with that, it is brand new and it's leapfrogged our competition that put out something a few years ago that is now maybe a little tired and doesn't have half the features. And the LoRiOt integration is well done and simple. And you know, in other integrations, you're having to scrabble underneath the bonnet with command line stuff. Simply click enable, put in the right URL, and then away you go. So, because we're short on time, I'm happy to have a robust VPN conversation separately. But for simplified network management, basically, robust VPN can give you a fixed IP address on any gateway, anywhere in the world, any SIM card, or any bearer. So if it's, for example, you're building a private network within a corporate WAN, as long as they can allow you the ability to punch out a VPN tunnel, you may be able to get remote access to a box on a corporate WAN that you otherwise couldn't. Equally, if your customer insists on using consumer SIMs that don't provide a fixed IP address, robust VPN will solve that problem for you too. So in this slide, I've called it TeamViewer for gateways, which is effectively what it is. It will hold up a connection to a bit of middleware, and then you can come into that middleware and make a connection. So I think in some applications for network management, that may be very useful. There's more information on the website, Robust VPN. You can download the data sheet from the App Center. Smart roaming is a very, very important consideration for applications where you have to use 4G. If you can use Ethernet, copper or fiber, backhaul from the gateway, I think it's, to be honest, I think that's preferable. We want as high a resilience as possible, and you're going to get that on a better over a bit of copper than an RF media. However, the whole point of this agile IoT thing is that sometimes we will use 4G as the backhaul, and because of that, we need it to be as reliable as possible. And because of that, many people use roaming or multi-network SIMs. However, there is a fundamental issue with doing that that is not addressed by standard gateways without additional intelligence. And again, can't cover smart roaming in detail, but please email separately if you want information. Basically, what our products with smart roaming do is they perform a network scan like the one you see there. It leaves automatic network selection to choose a network. But the really important thing is if that fails for some reason, it will not leave you on a failed network. That is what standard automatic network selection can do. So this is an absolute killer differentiator. It's a unique selling point. I don't know that anyone else, I've never seen anyone else has this. They might do. But I certainly haven't seen anyone that's productized it this effectively. When you're making your proposition to customers, you don't have to sell it to them. But I think to let them know that this can be enabled anytime remotely, even with an SMS message, if you needed to, is a very good part of your armory. So in the App Center Smart Roaming, there's a data sheet. But what I think can be a killer sales tool for anyone who's promoting these products or this solution is we have a specific smart roaming white paper that explains all of the detail as to why there's a problem with roaming and the solution that is smart roaming. And then we've got a similar white paper targeted at how to apply it in LoRa gateways. Just very briefly, there's a very good cloud management platform that I've already referred to. You can set up for a free trial anytime. Basic version's completely free. Highly recommend, especially for LoRa infrastructure, every customer you sell a gateway to, get them to sign up on the basic version. They'll be able to see the data usage, the online status, the location of the gateway on a map for easy management. And then if they want to upgrade to an Essentials or Advanced license, it's very easy once they have an account. So try and factor that in from the outset. Here's a little bit of practical stuff just to conclude with. So here's a range test on Longchu Island. Obviously quite optimal conditions, as you can see, but 14 kilometers to the far end of quite a large island between Guangzhou and Hong Kong, on the run out to the South China Sea. Interesting with, if we do a quick bit of pi r, I've got me, no, pi r squared, 3 times 14 squared gives you 600 kilometers squared. Theoretical. Now, I'm sure it won't be that, but it gives you an idea of how powerful this technology can be if you want to build your own networks. Quick success story. So it's very timely that this webinar was today. This company run a proof of concept about a year ago, very slow moving, coronavirus not helped. But they've just come back and said they trialed with Robustel and one other manufacturer of gateways, and they want to go to the next 100 pieces with Robustel. So very positive. Unfortunately, couldn't get sign off for the full case study here. So slightly generic images, but I thought it's just worth mentioning that the specific feedback from the customer was that Robustel has a good reboot time, which is important when you're configuring several of them. The support is very good and responsive, as opposed to software issues being left to languish for weeks. Obviously, we try not to sell on price, but absolutely price was very clearly a differentiator for Robustel. Being able to monitor an additional power input on the digital input, cloud platform much better, LoRiOT integration really nicely done, and the fact that in relatively low volumes, we can provide a gateway fully configured with your config file, with LoRiOT set up correctly, rather than there being a high minimum order quantity imposed by others, was deemed to be very valuable. So final couple of screens from me. If you look in the bottom right, this is the Robustel App Center that is in all RobustOS devices, so not just the gateways. And it is brilliantly executed. It makes Robustel's environment like Google Play Store. You can have any application you want. And in this instance, we've installed LORIOT. And compared with most of the others, it's an extremely simple app, but it is all you need. So you enable the LoRiOT server, you put the right server in, and it's done. No command line interfaced stuff or anything like that, as you might have to do in other environments. And this is just to put it in context. So there's the LoRiOT app on the cloud platform, and on the bottom left, alongside the RCMS app, which is our cloud platform, Robustel's cloud platform connector. And up on the main screen on the right there, you see the LoRiOT application. So you can see every application from the cloud installed on every router or gateway, as well as a myriad of other functions. So yeah, sorry for overrunning there, guys. That's me done. And I will pass over to Alan Ray from LORIOT, who will present how the LORIOT solution dovetails in with the Robustel piece to, I think, build a very, very compelling solution pitch for IoT projects. So, Alan, over to you.
Very nice. Thank you very much, David. I'll just share my screen for everyone. Can everybody see my screen okay?
I can see it okay, Alan.
Perfect. Good. Well, good day, everyone, and thank you, David, and for Robustel for inviting me to talk. My name is Alan Ray, and I'm part of the technical sales team at Laureate. And today, in this brief time that we have, I'd like to just cover a few topics. Firstly, the Laureate gateway software and how it solves some fundamental problems with typical LoRaWAN use cases. How the Laureate gateway software can sort of dramatically reduce time and effort to get your network up running at scale, and how possibly we could come up with some additional services that we can package together with the Robustel and Laureate network integration that maybe some of the distributors can offer around the actual sale of the gateway itself. So let's change. Super. So first, let me just maybe introduce Laureate quickly to you guys, just so you have some background. Laureate was founded in 2015, and we was created to provide the network server infrastructure for basically a new field of wireless technologies that David covered, low-powered wide area networks. And at the moment, we are specifically focused on the Laureate protocol and building network servers for LoRaWAN. And Vit Pratcher, one of our founders, actually helped build the first ever LoRaWAN network server for Semtech while he was working here in Zurich at the IBM Research Labs. So we've been involved in LoRa from the very early days, and we've sort of grown from there. And we have a team based in Zurich, where our headquarters is. We have another team in Valencia and Budapest, and we've grown to around about a team of 25 at the moment. So we are a globally operating company with network servers deployed all around the world. We currently host 13 community network servers in the USA, in Asia, in Africa, in Japan, and so on. And we have an additional 3 professional public servers, which are cloud-hosted servers again, but with an SLA behind them. But our core business is the installation of private network servers. So clients who want to take our LoRaWAN network server software and build their public networks around it or their solutions around it specifically for them. And we currently provide this service to national telecoms operators who are building these national public LoRaWAN networks that Dave described across Denmark, Hungary, Czech Republic, Sweden, UK is coming. These have all built out the big LoRaWAN networks. Even a level down from that, we have over 30 cities who are building their own private LoRaWAN networks specifically to serve their own digital transformation needs, and our network server essentially provides connectivity for that whole LoRaWAN network. And we even go further down the level to individual multinational companies who are building private networks specifically for their infrastructure or their internal requirements, and they want to put out gateways, have their own network server on premise and connect their solutions internally, or SMEs, individual solution companies who are providing smart metering, smart lighting, cold storage, all that kind of stuff, who want to basically have their own server as part of their solution. They want to control it themselves. So let's have a little look then about maybe delving into a little bit more detail than on the network server side from the slide David showed earlier about what role does a network server play in a LoRaWAN end-to-end stack. Well, David rightly said it described it as the brains of the network. And essentially, in a stack, we have the devices out in the field who are all just transmitting messages. They've no idea if it's being received or anything like that. They just transmit their message. And the gateways are very dumb, relatively sporadic devices that are listening for these radio packets, and then they're connected to a network server. So they'll backhaul all the messages to a network server. But it's the LoRaWAN network server that essentially controls all of the LoRaWAN protocol mechanisms. And it also does the authorization, the join requests, it adds security and management layers. And on top, our network server has a very user-friendly interface to provision devices, to operate the network through, to configure bi-directional communication across the whole network, and many features that essentially make it much easier to manage networks at small level all the way out to scaled up networks within one centralized platform. And it essentially then allows you to connect all your gateways and all your devices across all your users within one platform, and that data is routed to many applications on the other side, making it as simple as possible. Good. So currently, the network server itself, it doesn't discriminate on use case. We have customers. We're supporting clients across pretty much every industry and vertical. Facilities management, track and trace, smart street lighting, you name it. Now there's pretty much a LoRaWAN based solution for it. And there's some very good mature solutions out there now on the device level, on the gateways with Robustel, for example. The network server companies have been around for many years, providing good software on that side. And IoT platforms, I'm sure you're all aware, there's hundreds of IoT platforms to pick from, all addressing different use cases. So how we supply this, or how we offer this network server, is at the moment we have sort of two models that LORIOT hosts ourselves and offers as a product directly to anyone who wants to take it. And that is the 13 community public servers, where anyone can create an account and connect a gateway for free and connect up to 10 devices. And it's a full-fledged LoRaWAN network server, so they can pretty much fully test end-to-end any solution they needed to. And once they've, let's say, completed a proof of concept, then they can go on to what we call the professional public servers. And these are a US, Asian, and European hosted server, 3 separate servers, where we put an SLA on top of the network server. So customers who are in that sort of transitional stage from small deployments, they're starting to have critical deployments for end customers. They're not quite ready for a private server yet, but they need something with professional services offered around it. Then they can buy from us very simple connectivity packages to connect 100 devices or 500 devices or 1,000 devices, and it's just a fixed monthly fee. But 90% of our revenues and our core business is actually to install private network servers for clients, where they will add their own gateways, whether that's a national telecoms operator or an individual solutions company. And we offer that either as a hosted service, so we'll spin up that server in the UK or in Australia or in China and manage the hosting and provide an SLA, and then the customer has his top tier server access. It's just for him, it's his server, he does what he wants with it. Or we install it on premise into the customer's cloud or on premise infrastructure. And for a lot of the multinational companies or a lot of sectors like petrochemical, pharmaceutical, and so on, defense, this is a major requirement to have the software running within their environment. Good. So that's a quick intro to LoRiOt and our products around it. And what we're really focusing today a bit more in depth on, is that connection, or the connection between the gateway and the network server, and why we've sort of combined these two products together, and what are the software that's involved that makes this a really strong offering. And typically in an end-to-end solution, a lot of people focus on the device and platform, but they kind of miss the middlemen. So let's go a little bit into more about that, and why we built a piece of software to sort of dramatically improve quality of service of this connection, security, monitoring, and management capabilities. So first we need to understand why we built this software. Well, ever since the LoRaWAN standard was first conceived, there have been a lot of focus on how security works in the end-to-end LoRaWAN data processing chain. And the main focus, as I said, is typically on the end nodes, so typically sensor devices, and the IoT applications, typically a web application or a mobile application. And it ignores most of the middle components, the gateway and the network server. And to connect gateways with the network server, there is a piece of software called the packet forwarder. And unfortunately, many vendors are still using a packet forwarder software that uses UDP. It was originally a reference design that's kind of been people never took it any further and adopted it into a more improved product. And because it's UDP, it randomly sends data packets or datagrams to a recipient, the network server, without checking for missed packets. Sorry. It's typically used when error connection is not necessary, and it can result in very unreliable delivery of data and a poor oversight of the health and connection of gateways. So this is why, this is what prompted us to build our own packet forwarder and gateway software, which adds many security layers, additional management tools, and critically it uses JSON-based protocol over TCP, which is a connection-oriented protocol, not UDP, which is connection-less. And in this section, we can kind of look into some more key features about why that's quite critical and why that improves quite dramatically the quality of service between your gateway and your network server, which overall, adds to the benefit and health of the solution in general. So let's nail down maybe like 8 key features that this software adds, and this software that's running when you install the LORIOT concentrator on the Robustel gateway. So data cache and network failover. So because we're using TCP as a protocol for data delivery, we've implemented another layer on top of that TCT that confirms data delivery to the application level. It handles any retransmissions if data is not done, and it identifies that data is late, so it needs to retransmit. So we're monitoring the sort of the connection between the network server and the gateway. And in addition, because we're actively monitoring it, if the backhaul connection does go down, the binary will provide a failover to a secondary network interface and even cache packets ready to resend once the connection is established. And actually with the Robustel smart roaming, if your primary SIM goes down, then that will automatically switch you to another operator. But worst case scenario than that, then you could also switch to another network interface. Maybe there's an Ethernet backhaul as well that's available. Gateway alerts, this kind of leads into the gateway alerts, which will provide email, webhook notifications that your gateway is online or offline, and it will also provide a latency threshold to the network server. It's quite important with LoRaWAN networks to keep a latency below 800 milliseconds for when devices join the network or you want to send a downlink to a battery-powered device, which essentially is transmitting, listening for 2 seconds, another 2 seconds, and then sleeping again. So you have to make sure you hit that window if you're doing a downlink, and that requires good latency between the gateway and a network server. Lifecycle management. So once you've deployed hundreds of gateways in the field, an obvious problem arises how to make sure all these gateways have the latest security patches and software updates. Well, all our software that runs, or our LoRaWAN gateway software, is self-updating, and we maintain it in line with the gateway's latest firmware. So it runs on the OS level, but we constantly work with the gateway manufacturers, like with Robustel, to make sure that we keep that synchronization in place between those two solutions. And gateway monitoring. So, well, the software provides sort of a unified information about the health of the gateway and the LoRaWAN specific parameters. And additionally, it feeds this information into the Laureate network server, which we can use for debugging, we can use for checking how devices are, what the radio parameters are for devices, what the health of the network is. And we can also use it for displaying long-term trends and statistics that we can act upon. And on top of that, we add a lot of mutual authentication and security. So a UDP packet forwarder provides no means of authentication. It we utilize the TLS 1.2 mutual authentication, and we also have a private public key cryptography that we add on top of this TCP connection. So in other words, the gateway and the network server verify that they're connecting to the right components, and each one is connecting to the correct network server and the correct gateway. And on top of this, we also have a separate private key infrastructure where we can put certificates on the gateway that are authenticated with the certificate in the back end of the network server. So you can really have a pretty bulletproof connection that this gateway belongs to the correct network and is authorized, and no one can spoof an additional gateway or anything like that. So this is what the Robustel app also really focuses on, is the ease of installation. Provisioning gateways through the user interface or REST API makes registering new gateways quick and easy. And as we can see with the Robustel gateways, this becomes super important when we start scaling and adding hundreds of gateways to a network. And in the next section, I'll go into a bit more detail about how simple that really is to start provisioning many Robustel gateways on our server. And we provide this software actually for free. You know, we believe it's worth to maintain, and a lot of our customers actually require it because of the management layers and the security layers that the Laureate gateway software adds to a LoRaWAN gateway. And on the sort of additional value, or sort of on the roadmap as well, is the LoRa geolocation. So our gateway software can provide nanosecond resolution timestamps, and this is for time of arrival geolocation, and all LoRaWAN gateways that support it support this time arrival if we have the LoRaWAN binary running on it. And it can provide, you know, signal information-based geolocations for any gateway that doesn't necessarily support nanosecond resolution timestamps. So is it worth it? Well, we believe the ability to prove and demonstrate to customers that their infrastructure is secure and reliable is highly important, and typically it's a key selling point. So adding this software onto your gateway with a secure connection to the network server, all the management levels, really does tip people over as, you know, why they should go with this offering. And we also think it's incredibly simple to configure, which I can go into now. So let's have a look. Minimal effort to connect. So how do we register the Robustel gateway in the Laureate side of things, in the Laureate network server? Well, we do, well, together with the team at Robustel, we repacked the Laureate gateway software into an application which can simply be uploaded to the Laureate UI, making the whole process really easy and user-friendly. And essentially, when you create an account on the Laureate server or on your own server, you log into the user interface, and you very simply add a new network. And a network on our side is just a logical grouping of gateways, and it can be location or model or anything like that. And to register a gateway on our side, you simply just go into the user interface, click the Robustel icon to add the R3000LG, and then add the EFO MAC address, and if you want to, the location of the gateway. Then it's provisioned on the network server. There's nothing more to do within the user interface side. You obviously go to the Robustel App Center, you download the concentrator, and then when you log into the Robustel interface, the web UI, you simply upload that app in the UI, and then what you need to do is just add the custom URL of a network server. So if it's a Laureate server, maybe the EU1, you'd put eu1.laureate.io. If it's a private server, which is the advantage, is that, you know, private servers are typically the customers who are starting to scale, who've got good volume, then you can also use this provisioning method for their private URL, and it's very, very easy to configure. So it really is as easy as 3 steps, you know, to get the gateway. And once you've done that whole process, you log back into your Laureate interface, and you'll see your gateway is online, and it's ready to start listening for LoRaWAN packets and start routing that data to the end application. Good. So in the brief time we have left, I'll try to be quick. We can maybe just discuss a little bit about some added values that you guys can add having this LoRaWAN or the network server connectivity included. So as I said before, we have these community network servers. It's very easy to provide customers with an account on that server, and we can offer that for free if they need to have an account with the server, so that when you deliver the gateway, it's already pre-provisioned on one of the public network servers. And in the bottom, we can see all the different servers that we have available around the world. Free to use, you can add a gateway and 10 devices, and then they've already fulfilled, let's say, 2/4 of the LoRaWAN end-to-end stack. And that's really to get them going, you know, get them started testing out LoRaWAN. And once they're, let's say, once they've proved it, then they can maybe migrate onto one of the professional services. We also have quite a nice application that's built on top of the network server, which is called the Network Ranger. And this application, essentially, you have a GPS device, and you walk around with your GPS device sending LoRa packets, and your Robustel gateway will listen for those packets. And then in the Network Ranger, you'll basically see the range of the packet to the gateway, so what was the distance, and you'll see all the radio parameters, and then how many gateways picked up that packet, and so on. So it's really nice to be able to visualize the network itself, your network of gateways, and what are the distances that you can achieve with that. Good. Like I say, we have all these servers around the world, so it's no limitations. If you're based in China, we have a server in China. If you're based in Europe, we have multiple servers, and anyone can sign up and create an account. But really, obviously, we want to all get to that stage where we're adding additional revenues and additional professional services around our core products. And what some are been real successful is with the distributors is for, aside from just selling the network, the gateway itself, is to add some network server packages around that as well. So, for example, we've seen that's very easy to provision gateways on the network server, but even still, some customers would prefer that gateway is delivered pre-provisioned, and you can have an account on our server where you can create new user accounts, provision gateways within them, so that when you deliver to your customer, they already have an account which you can give them access to if they need it, or you can just manage it for them, and then it's all ready to go on the network server side. And if you want to take it a step further than that, you can have plug and play kits. So you can maybe even have a device that's comes with your kit, and your gateway, the gateway and the network server already pre-provisioned, and the network server is configured to send data to a generic IoT platform or something like that, where we start seeing all the data visualized and so on. But it's very easy to package those pieces, because the device side is very easy. It's pretty much a LoRaWAN device. It will communicate with your gateway and the network server. Not much to do there. On the application side, a little bit of work on decoding the data and displaying in a user interface, but the whole package is delivered end to end. And like I say, we can provide accounts even on our managed server, where you can set this all up and deliver it to a customer as a pre-configured kit. And it's even an option to resell the actual professional server packages as well. So if you want to offer a customer 100 device packages on a server or something like that, you can have completely your own fees for that, and then we'll just have an agreement between us. And ideally, with all of this, is about migrating customers from a few devices, smaller deployments, and helping them all the way through the process, where they start then taking large orders, large volumes of gateways, large volumes of devices. And for us, we benefit because our business model is around devices connected and the server costs, for example. But the more devices, the more gateways, the better for everyone. So we're really keen to help with that migration path. And if you were to introduce anyone to Laureate who wanted to connect to the Robustel gateway with the network server, and then we followed that through to a sale of a private server, then we're more than happy to do a revenue share with you guys on that. Good. So thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope that provides some insights into the integration between Robustel and LoRaWAN network server, what I can add to any sort of network deployment. And please feel free to get in touch with me if you'd like to discuss more. My email is alan@laureate.io. And I'll pass back to David now for any questions, I guess.
Hi, Alan.
Hi there, David.
Are you okay to field some questions now?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, guys, I've noticed there's some questions in the chat. If you'd like them answered now, could you just re-raise the question either in the chat or maybe just jump on the audio?
I think I can see maybe a few questions to start with. Julius asks, is there any for the Robustel gateway, is there any option without a GSM module?
Yes. So one of the strengths of the Robustel R3000 LG is that there absolutely is a Ethernet only version. So we lose the LTE 4G module from the bill of materials, and the price goes down accordingly.
I mean, ultimately, it's the use case that generally dictates what the backhaul is, right? So I guess you would have some preconception of what model to deploy.
But yeah, certainly we've got those options.
I have a question.
fire away.
How big is the server in South Africa? I'd like to know how popular the LoRaWAN is in our country at the moment. I know that SquidNet has been used, and that's done by Dark Fiber Africa, but I don't know how prevalent LoRaWAN is at the moment.
It's a very good question. So from a Laureate product side, we have a community server based in South Africa where anyone can sign up, but it's typically for proof of concept, starting out and so on. The interesting thing with Laure is that there's a lot of private networks. So where there is in South Africa, let's say no big, as far as I'm aware, big public operator who's covering 80% with a Laure network, there are actually a lot of private networks being deployed that we don't really necessarily know about. We know about them if they're using Laureate network servers. For example, there are mining companies in South Africa who are building LoRaWAN networks on their mining sites to monitor vibration in conveyor belts or track and trace their pieces of equipment and so on. And they will deploy their own gateways connected to their own on-premise network server, quite literally in the data center on the actual mining site, and then connect them to applications that are running in their data center as well. So it's difficult to have a very insightful indication of how popular it is there, again, across all the different vendors, but the use cases are growing, and the types of industries that are running in South Africa along the mining and agriculture are very well suited to LoRaWAN. So there's a lot of companies now starting to use LoRaWAN as the protocol, and a lot of the metering companies and so on who are upgrading or migrating from sort of legacy radio communication protocols over to LoRa.
Okay.
Well,
sorry, Alan.
No, I was just wondering, was there any particular vertical that was an interest, or was it just more to do with the size of, let's say, networks that are available?
I just wanted to know what the uptake is at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Verticals, we are based in mining, and we are based in water, and we're based in power. Yeah. And we'll look at all of those. I'd like to know, I also like to find out the what is the opportunity around partnering with you guys for sort of create some more private networks, maybe for some of our customers, and sort of business model around that. So yeah, definitely.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to go. So the main factor is for us to, let's say, fulfill the different components of that end-to-end solution. So, as a distributor, you guys would be providing the gateway side, and as a network server, we'll be fulfilling that part. And we'll provide if you introduce any of your customers to us, we'll provide a revenue share on the network server revenue, so you can sort of partake in that part as well, not just the distribution level. But we, as our position in the center of a LoRaWAN solution, we get a lot of exposure to the manufacturer, the device manufacturers, the gateway manufacturers, the application servers, and a lot of contact requests coming from these areas through our community network servers that are looking to build LoRaWAN solutions. And of course, we don't do hardware, so we can't fulfill these customers' requirements by ourselves. We have to work with you guys as the distributors to be able to provide a quality service where you're making sure you're getting equipment to them timely, it's working, and so on, so that we're both working together to provide the best possible service to these customers. And we are typically operating with tier 1 network operators, multinational companies like Shell, Boston Consulting Group, Deutsche Telekom are all using our network server in the back end. So there's a lot of potential to work together where we need a local operator and local distributor to fulfill those parts of the LoRaWAN stack that we can't do.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, this is Nitin from India.
Hi, Nitin.
Yeah, how are you?
Very well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, so in India, the country is not yet, like a lot of ISPs are working on doing a lot of POCs for LoRaWAN to set up a network for LoRaWAN in India. but none of the ISPs has come out with a concrete solution offering and giving a LoRaWAN based network. So what I wanted to know from you, can I build my own private LoRa network for any of application like you mentioned, mining or agriculture or any power metering application where I can build my own LoRa network? I can put my own servers and LoRa gateways and have a private LoRa network to be done. Is it possible?
Absolutely, and actually that's really our core business, is to be able to, where there is no big traditional model of a public telecoms company, you know, reselling the network coverage.
Right.
The beauty of LoRaWAN is that you can essentially do this yourself. You can become the network operator, and the costs are, you know, it's not 100,000 to put out your own gateway. It's the cost of a Robustel gateway to create a network, and it's the cost of maybe a private network server, which are, you know, very cost effective for the capability of the software. And then you can use that network server to add and provision your own gateways to create coverage where you need it, specifically for your solution. So if you have a customer who, let's say you're doing cold storage and you have a customer who wants to monitor medicines in his factory, for example, there's no network there, there's no LoRaWAN network, but you've got your own network server, you install your own gateway. Now all of a sudden you've created a network at that site where you can start putting out sensors and, you know, delivering a solution for that customer. And that's typically what's happening, is the growth of many private networks for multinational companies, individual solution companies who are doing the network deployment side themselves. And in competition to that, there is public LoRaWAN network operators, and they both have their pros and cons. You know, with the public, you've already got that network built out. With the private, you can basically build out your own and take full control over the network side as well as the rest of your solution.
Right. And one more thing which I don't know, when you say about the LoRa gateways which we have, are we planning anything specific to any vertical market certification? Like for example, when we deploy any hardware in say oil and gas, and the power is a big vertical market for us in India, we want to focus something to start with either power and oil and gas. So is any certification in terms of hardware certification I'm asking, like ATEX class 1 zone 2, or maybe in case of power, maybe EMC level 4 certification, or those kind of an hardware certification? It is something is in the pipeline of Robustel, or how it is? I'm saying the hardware certification.
So the R3000 router itself has, so this is the actual router, has class 1 div 2 for hazardous environments. Because the R3000 LG is a slightly different SKU, it's got a different technology, and as I'm sure you know, the certification is hugely expensive. At the moment there's not class 1 div 2. It does obviously have an industrial design, which has been used many times over in general utility applications. But I think what really, and there's another consideration that, you know, it's just sticking with the specifically hazardous area considerations, you know, because it's radio, you may be able to site the unit outside of a hazardous area, or there may be, you know, or you can put it in a separate enclosure. There may be some. But I think really what verticalizes the solution is the sensor. And I think this is where every one of you guys that are in the channel, you can sell LoRa gateways, you can sell LoRa network servers, and I think if you add some value by demonstrating end-to-end tests with sensors that you know are used in your market, I think you will be surprised how far ahead you are of your competitors with a relatively small investment once you have the core from Robustel and Laureate.
Right. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Just something else to mention to everyone, guys. Talking about credibility and being ahead of the competition. So we obviously we have some projects, but Robustel at the moment, one of the challenges is we are not such a strong brand name. Now, one of the things we can do to help with that is we leverage our friends when we go into a project. We leverage the strength of Laureate's brand name and experience in this market and their endorsement of us, both as Robustel and as you guys as individuals. And I highly recommend that from a sales perspective to get that credibility when you're trying to open the door. I'm hoping we will have a number of formal case studies on what we have won already, some of them very nice projects, and very clearly taking business from the market leader or the supposed market leader, not just on price, but on features as well. So there is a huge opportunity here, but we have to do all the right things at the outset with your help to make that become a reality. And it's exactly why Laureate are on this call. Take them with you into a project, and I believe you've got a much better chance of winning if it's a big tender or there's some well-known competition.
Absolutely, and I'd just like to add that we have servers deployed, private servers deployed around the world. So having local partners who we can work with is a real strength to us, and we're more than happy to also work both directions of bringing you guys clients who are looking for a gateway side, looking for the hardware side, and any additional services around that, because we can't fulfill that. And if you bring something to us, then we can help you deliver to them or a very strong network server component to go into their solution. And ideally, we all just want this to scale up and increase our volumes, and working together, we can carry the customer through to this process.
So just a question that's come up a number of times in the chat is about the actual LoRa RF side of things. So for those of you that are in the know, with the R3000 LG products, they are all based on the Semtech SX1301 gateway chip, which is an 8-channel gateway. Now, part of the marketing game going forward is to have 16 or 32 or 64 channel gateways. Now, there have been entire countries built on 8-channel gateways. So if you get that as an objection, you need to talk about the sort of what is actually the use case anticipated and so on. Also, it's too early to say anything in absolute detail, but the status at Robustel about having 8-channel or a 16-channel or above, that status may be changing in the short to mid-term. So, as always, feel free to inquire. And the reason for stating what the number of channels in the gateways, we talk about the capacity of sensors. And I'm actually going to opt to follow that one up after the event, because there is a theoretical number, a practical number, and a tested and simulated number to answer how many sensors can connect to a gateway. Don't forget, you've got things like duty cycle limitations on 868 megahertz. But I can see the question there really is the absolute instantaneous connections is my assumption based on the number of channels, or within a window, or that can be registered. So I'm going to refer back to R&D to get a detailed answer on that. But yeah, certainly we'll make sure we follow up.
Maybe I can just quickly add that on, with the actual LoRaWAN specification, with the protocol itself, it addresses this issue of capacity through the actual radio mechanisms that it implements. So there is 8 channels, but there is multiple bands on the frequency level. Mostly devices don't communicate at the exact same second or the exact same millisecond. So there's a lot of space on the network, and LoRa operates below the noise floor. So messages typically get delivered with a high message rate. So the actual capacity itself of the protocol is very high, and one gateway, it's very difficult to say exactly how many numbers, because how often are your sensors transmitting? Is it every minute? Is it every hour? How many are in a dense area, and so on? And the one mechanism that makes a very big difference for LoRaWAN is the adaptive data rate, which is where a device and a network server will communicate with each other to figure out what is the ideal data rate to be transmitting on to get the best message with the highest bandwidth for that transmission. And initially, a device will start as in on a very high spreading factor, talking very loud, using the most power and sending its message over the longest airtime. And the network server will say, after 12 of those successful messages, decrease your power, so you increase battery life and transmit at a higher bandwidth. And if you imagine, you can have thousands of devices all transmitting on different data rates, different frequencies, different channels. All of a sudden, the scalability of the network gets into the hundreds of millions of devices, And as you increase the gateway density, and this is one of the benefits of actually to customers saying why they should add more gateways, is that we want devices to have a gateway as close as possible to speak on the lowest battery, so the lowest power output and the highest bandwidth. And if you only have one gateway serving a very large area, some devices might have to transmit on a high with a high power level and a low data rate. By adding more devices and adding more gateways and building up the density of it, all devices in an area can get down to that lowest power consumption level with the highest data rate. Good. Good, okay.
Any final questions, guys? Okay, well, you can always come back to us. Yeah, so the R3000 LG outdoor gateway is available now. I'll take that as an action as well. In fact, let me just note outdoor gateway data sheet. I will send to all. That includes the part numbers, and I would take the nodes per gateway. But as I say, like Alan's highlighted, there's a lot of variables under the bonnet, so it may not just be a black and white answer. We'll also share a version of the PPTs. I think we can share it pretty much as is. There's nothing particularly commercially sensitive. Question about MQTT. So Anand, could you expand on where the MQTT client is in your question?
Maybe I can assume on this part. So essentially what would happen is your Robustel gateway would have an IP backhaul to a network, to the Laureate network server. Yeah, so this is how the architecture would work. You'd have your gateway connecting to your Laureate network server. And the network server basically routes the data from the gateway that it receives from gateways to your application. And that routing can be done over MQTT. So we have a standard JSON format that the message is formatted in, and all that data is sent to an MQTT broker, which then sends to your application server. And if you want to do bidirectional, then it's again through the MQTT protocol. The network server also supports HTTPS, CoAP. It has bidirectional full integrations with IoT Azure, with MyCayenne, with IBM Bluemix, all these different platforms. But yeah, having MQTT and HTTPS basically opens up pretty much every application out there to connect with a Laureate network server.
Alan, do you mind just, sorry to be a pain, but do you mind just, because it's such a, I guess it's such an important parameter, could you just recap those outputs from the LoRaWAN network server to someone else's server, what's available with Laureate?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I can quickly share my screen again. Could you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so actually we can quickly log into one of the servers. This one's based in the UK. This is a community server, so anyone can sign up. And very quickly, we have networks and applications, and in our networks, we start provisioning our gateways, Robustel and so on. And then in the application side, we start registering our devices, and the network server associates all the devices you've registered in here with a specific LORIOT application. And this is just a network server thing. And then we configure for that data to then be forwarded. The network server's role is not to store data, not to decrypt it or anything like that. It's to, securely authenticate it, handle all the mechanisms, be able to have a management platform to provision device and so on. But then the critical part is to get your data from your devices to your gateway to the network server, and then finally to your application server so it can be presented in an application. And to do that, the integration is pretty simple, really. You have your MQTT where you put in your broker details, and then all the data starts arriving at your broker. If you want to, you can tap into a WebSocket. We have HTTP push as well. Majority of clients are using these two protocols, these two APIs to connect with the network server. And this is bi-directional as well, so you can send messages from your application back down to your device. And how that would happen is your application would say, I want to send this payload. The network server would then pick a Robustel gateway that had the best previous parameters from an uplink to then send that downlink. So it has an algorithm to know to pick the best gateway that has the best connection to a device to send that downlink. And you can see, I guess, in the actual account very quickly. Let me show you in let's say an active stream of data so you guys can see it being routed to a application. So here we have one of the applications where I've already registered a device. We have data coming in, these are the payloads, and then we manage the output and route it to the correct application on that side. Good. Where are we? This is the one. Good. So yeah, that's basically how you would connect the network server to the end application. It's very simple, and that basically provides the connectivity from end to end in both directions.
I think that really helps to reinforce how much of the job is done if you've got a Robustel gateway, the LoRiOt server. Mm-hmm. You're just rocking up the sensors almost, aren't you?
You pretty much are, yeah. I mean, there is some configuration done at the application side, but typically this wouldn't be within our remit. This would be the customer who's building the solution to do, and he would have to decode some device data or so on. But the manufacturers typically provide that decoding data.
Brilliant. Superb. Okay, guys. Well, I think the rate of delivery of new questions has slowed down a little, and we've managed to massively overrun, which is actually, I think it's great. It looks like we're making good use of this extra time we have at home for most of us. Firstly, I just want to say a massive thank you to Alan. By his support to me at Robustel, and hopefully subsequently you guys as well, is literally can be monetized in its own right. So please take the LoRaWAN guys with you. Please also be mindful that, of course, there's finite resource there. So, maybe the larger projects or, the strategically important ones with those guys. And then just to say thank you to everyone that joined. It's been our best ever webinar. And in 2 weeks' time today, we have the Robust VPN webinar, same format, same presenter, and hopefully the same audience. So have a lovely day, and thanks very much for your time again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, David. Appreciate you having me.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.